This is All Saints Sunday. It's the Sunday when we annually recognize and remember the saints in the church. As part of the communion service, at the end of the communion service, we will read the names of those persons in our congregation who died since last All Saints Sunday, and we will then encourage you to name aloud or in your hearts those who are dear to you who have entered their reward. All Saints Sunday, a typical reading, a usual reading is the Beatitudes. Beatitude is a common saying about the good life. Beatitudes, they're like Proverbs. That's why I asked Amy to read the Proverbs. They are descriptive, not prescriptive. They don't tell us how to live. They just describe what life is like. It's kind of like, somebody says something and they say, just saying, I'm just saying. It's not that you have to do anything. They're not ordering us to do anything. I'm just saying. If it's cold, you put on a coat. Just saying. I'm not telling you have to or anything. So Proverbs are kind of Beatitudes. They're common sayings about life. And we can put ourselves in there or not. A word well spoken is like a golden apple in a silver setting. A kind word to a person in trouble is like a shower on a hot day. It's just an observation about life. The Beatitudes are like Proverbs in a way. They are descriptive, not prescriptive. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Now, the Beatitudes that we're most familiar with are the Beatitudes in Matthew. And the Beatitudes in Matthew are different than those in Luke. But we're familiar with the ones in Matthew. Those are the ones that we might see in somebody's kitchen or living room that are needle-pointed and framed. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they will inherit the kingdom. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are those who are meek, for they shall inherit the earth, and so on. You didn't think I was going to do all 9 of them, did you? And there are 9 in Matthew. And in Matthew, it's part of the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus is up above, and you were wondering why I got up here. Jesus is up above speaking down to the people. And Jesus is removed from them. And it's blessed are the poor in spirit. Who's he talking to? Well, he could be talking to anybody. It's not necessarily those in front of him. It could be future generations. It could be somebody in another town. We can apply blessed are the poor in spirit to anybody. And we kind of like, and that's why usually when we talk about the Beatitudes, we talk about the ones in Matthew, because they're easier to take. And they're all kind of positive. But we're not quite sure if they're talking about us or not. So they're safe. They're safe. The ones in Luke are quite different. It's not called part of the Sermon on the Mount. It's called the Sermon on the Plain. And Jesus is not up there. He's down among the people. And it isn't blessed are the poor in spirit. It's blessed are you who are poor. Blessed are you who are hungry. Blessed are you who cry. He's walking among the people and he's looking people in the eye. So that's a big difference from what is happening in Matthew. Furthermore, he adds the woes. Matthew doesn't have the woes. Blessed, woe to you who are well fed, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are rich, for you will be poor. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will cry. It's very personal. it's hard to avoid this. It was interesting when Amy was reading it. I don't know if Rhonda was aware of it, and I can pick on Rhonda. Rhonda was looking down at her phone. You work. You're working. She's tweeting people about the sermon. And when Amy switched to the woes, Rhonda said, "What? Oh my God." The thing about that is we feel judged. We feel judged when Jesus gives the 4 blesseds and the 4 woes. We instinctively try to put ourselves in one of those 8 categories. Didn't you start to think when Amy read it and when I went through it, you think, is it blessed am I because I'm well fed, or blessed or woe to me because I'm rich? Which one applies to me? We immediately, I think, apply one of those to ourselves, and we feel judged. But remember, Beatitudes and the Woetudes are descriptive, not prescriptive. Jesus is just describing a situation. And if we feel judged, it's we who are judging ourselves. We are evaluating ourselves. These are for our self-examination. Where do we fit in? So, the Beatitudes and the Woetudes tell us who we are. They tell us who we are, and we figure that out from our own self-examination. Now, as Jesus walks among the crowd, since he says, "Blessed are you who are poor, and woe to you who are rich, and blessed are you who are hungry, and woe to you who are well fed," everybody is in the crowd. It isn't just one particular group that's in that crowd. Everybody is in that crowd. There are rich and poor. There are well-fed and hungry. There are rejoicing. And there are those who are sad. And when Jesus talks about all of these categories, he has this reversal in Luke. He doesn't have this reversal so much in Matthew, but he has this reversal of, "Blessed are you who are poor, for you will be fed. Blessed are you who weep, for you will laugh." It's like life is a Ferris wheel. And, you might be on top, but then you'll go down. And you might be on the bottom, and then you'll go up. And when he gives these, he adds the word "now." Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be fed. Blessed are you who are poor now, for you will be rich. Blessed are you who cry now, for you will laugh. And then woe are you who are rich now, for you will be poor. And woe to you who are fed now, for you will be hungry. There's an impermanence to, is that a word, impermanent? Lack of permanence. There's a lack of permanence to anyone's situation. Those who are up will be down. Those who are down will be up. It's just life is this cycle. And because of this impermanence, there is I'm going to have to look that up to see if between services. There is a conditional nature. It's basically Jesus is saying, don't trust in these things. Don't define yourself by whether you're rich or poor, whether you're full or hungry. Don't let that define you, because those conditions don't last. And they're also, he says, base your life on something more permanent, more foundational than these things that are temporary. I think he's saying, base your life on me, not on these temporary things. And there's a certain sense of counterintuitivity to these things. Blessed are those who are weeping, for they will rejoice. That seems counterintuitive. And blessed, woe to those who are laughing, for they will cry. But I can't say that just because sometimes I'm at the bottom of the Ferris wheel, that's a bad thing. You know, I think when I broke my elbow several years ago, I still feel my elbow when I flex it. It's still somewhat painful. But I'd also argue that that's one of the best things that ever happened to me, was breaking my elbow. I couldn't open wine bottles anymore, you know? So I cut down on drinking. I couldn't cut my food. I couldn't cut meat or cheese. I started to lose weight. I mean, I couldn't open bags of chips. I could only eat what Susan gave me. That was all good. That was all good. And I could only eat with my left hand, so it meant I had to eat slower. And I didn't eat as much when I ate slower. Yeah, I know. We'll be breaking elbows after the service. And actually, when my elbow was healed enough that I could start to use my right arm, I thought, I'm not so sure I want to use it, because this has been so good. When I was on bottom, it actually swung me to the top. You know, it was a good thing. So Jesus is saying a lot of things that we hang our hat on are temporary, and it might be counterintuitive, but it might be good too. It might be good for us when something we see as bad happens. Jesus gives these beatitudes and these woeitudes, and they're descriptive, not prescriptive. But the question arises, okay, given all of that, how do we live? How do we live? And here he does shift to prescriptive behavior. How do we live? Love your enemies. Pray for those who abuse you. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. These are commands. These are what he tells people how to live. Now, what's interesting to me in this is, remember who's in the crowd that day. There are rich and poor, full and hungry, weeping and laughing. There are all kinds of people in that crowd. And what he says, love your enemy, applies to everyone in that crowd. Love your enemy, whether or not you are rich or poor. Bless those that curse you, whether or not you are full or hungry. Pray for those who curse you, whether or not you are mourning or laughing. Sometimes we think certain things don't apply to us. You know, I'm rich. I don't have to love my enemies. Jesus is saying, no, it doesn't matter. These things apply to everybody in the crowd. I'm mourning. I don't have to do good to those who hate me. No, it applies to everybody in the crowd. These are blanket commandments from Jesus. I'm not exempt. I'm not exempt because of my status in life. So give to those who beg, regardless of our status in life. If somebody asks for our coat, give our shirt as well, regardless of our status in life. He covers everyone. So we've gone through the Beatitudes. So who are the saints? Who are the saints? Too often in the church, we apply it only to those who are dead and only to individuals. You know, St. Peter, St. John. I'd say St. Christopher, but I don't think St. Chris is a saint anymore, right? He's not, yeah. Okay. Sorry, Chris. The Bible doesn't talk about individual saints. The Bible only uses the word saints in the plural. You know, Paul writes to the saints at Corinth, the saints at Rome, the saints in Galatia, the saints in Philippi. It's plural. It's everyone in the congregation. It's easy to look at somebody, to say, I'm a saint and you are not, or she's a saint and I'm not. But that's not how Paul uses that word. It's everyone in the congregation. And perfection is not a prerequisite for saints. In fact, imperfection is a prerequisite for saints. Imperfection does not disqualify anybody from being a saint. In fact, it qualifies them, because then when we know our imperfections, then Christ can begin to work within us and start to sanctify us, which is the Latin word for saint. We can start to work within us and make us saints. The crowd of saints on that day and the church of saints on this day have something in common. There is, of course, the broad diversity of that day and this day in both crowds. Both crowds come to Jesus looking for healing. Both crowds have a need. We come today because we have a need. I mean, it could be healing physically, it could be healing emotionally, it could be healing in relationship, it could be a sense of loneliness, looking for community. We come today with a need, just as the Bible says that crowd long ago came with a need, and they reached out to Jesus. It interests me when I talk about the temporary nature of that Ferris wheel. You know, we have that temporary nature in our Ferris wheel too. Some of us might have been really high last Sunday. We might have been happy about a new job or a birth or an anniversary, and you think, my gosh, today I came and I had just gotten news about losing a job, or I'd just gotten news about being diagnosed with a disease. You know, just, it does change very quickly. We are very much like that crowd 2,000 years ago. We come to Jesus with our need, and we reach out. One of the biggest changes I've seen in the ministry since in my lifetime, is that it seemed that there were people in the old days who came to church to network, or came to church because that's what everybody did. And so church attendance was kind of a mixed bag on why people were there. Nowadays, I don't think that holds anymore. I don't think people come to network. I don't think they come to be seen. It's not that fashionable to go to church anymore. There's so many other things to do. I think people come because there's a need. There's a need. One of my favorite, and I think that's more authentic, one of my favorite comedians is Jim Gaffigan. And heard an interview with him on NPR this summer. I didn't know this, but when the Pope visited Philadelphia, Gaffigan was one of the opening acts for the Pope. I mean, man, what a gig for that, you know. Gaffigan is married, and he and his wife have 5 children, and he's Catholic. And he said, people always come up to me and say, you had 5 children because you're Catholic. And he said, nope, that's not it at all. I am Catholic because I have 5 children. He said, all those kids, I need help. And he said, I'll take help wherever I can get it. And we go to Mass because we need help rearing 5 children. That's why I became Catholic. I needed the help. And he said, there's a lot wrong with the church, but I tell you one thing I believe is mercy. And I learn about mercy when I go to church. And I thought, yeah, I love that line. I'm Catholic because I have 5 children. I'm Christian because I need help. I'm United Methodist because I need help. Yeah, that's it. So who's a saint on All Saints' Day? I would say it's anybody who reaches out and opens up to let Christ help them, to let Christ work in their life. Who's a saint on All Saints' Day? You know, the Beatitude tells us who is a saint on All Saints' Day. They tell us who we are. And Jesus, on that Sermon on the Plain, says, rich or poor, mourning or laughing, full or hungry, we're all saints when we reach out to Jesus. May it be so. Amen.